Right, so today we're doing our network technology part three assignment, and topic today is going to be about Ethernet. So we're going to do a little introduction into what Ethernet is, and then our research question for today. So Ethernet handles high bandwidth applications compared to a wireless solution. As our reliance on these digital tools continue to grow, we need to ensure our networks can support the high demand of activities. For example, video conferencing, file transfers that are larger than normal, cloud computing, gaming applications, downloading different types of apps on consoles or computers, or just any type of applications. Um, and this brings us into our research question with how does Ethernet handle high bandwidth applications compared to wireless solutions? Mhm. So we're going to go into why Ethernet is important. It's been providing a gold standard in networking for decades now. It's typically just the fastest and the most reliable, unlike wireless networks sometimes. Ethernet connection offers low latency and are much less likely to suffer from like signal interferences that wireless connections typically have. Modern Ethernet technologies now can reach up to 400 gigabytes per second when using fiber optic or copper-based cables. That typically is more for like a business or a company that needs those fast speeds. Typically now for just like regular homes, they offer up to I think about a gigabyte of upload and download speed. And this makes it ideal for environments like data centers, remote work setups, and gaming where we need that consistent internet speed. So people that work from home, they need their internet to be up to certain standards and speeds. So Ethernet is the way that they typically go when it comes to this. All right, so the challenges with high bandwidth applications, they do place a significant like workload on the network infrastructure. And when you're using wireless networks, they can face anywhere from like congestion, especially if multiple people in the area are using it. And it can be affected by interference, like walls, physical barriers. If you have like a metal roof, it might affect it with that. Um, Meanwhile, users expect a seamless performance in real-time applications like conference calls or while they're gaming or just while they're watching TV. They just want that fast application to be consistent. Sometimes it's not always easy to achieve that wirelessly compared to the Ethernet. And even though the Ethernet does face some challenges when you're trying to scale across areas without proper planning, it still seems like the better option when it comes to certain things. So I'm gonna go with some pros and cons that Ethernet has. Has a lot of strengths. Typically, its fast and reliable speed is the best one, especially with low latency. It's perfect for tasks that should not be interrupted, um, like a data transfer or downloading something. You don't want that to be interrupted. You want that as fast as you can get that. Typically, it is secure. You can physically access who has control of the internet through the Ethernet. So you can hook it up to your computer. That's the only thing you want it to. So then you have control of that. So that's safe and secure. And it's good for large data transfers again and critical tasks that you need it to be reliable for. While it does have a lot of pros, it does have some cons too. You need physical cabling when it comes to hooking up the Ethernet, so that limits its mobility and flexibility with it. Typically, you'll have your router, and then like really close to it, you'll need your setup. Depending on the cables you need, typically the cables go up to about 100 meters, 100 feet. Kind of just depends on how much you're willing to spend on a cord to reach the area you want. The installation cost and the maintenance of it is a little more expensive and time consuming. Um, you got to set it up in a way where if you got to go through the walls to connect that Ethernet to a different room, to a different router, it just kind of depends on where you're at and needing the internet at and at that where relatively the modem is. Especially in large or dynamic environments, this could be challenging and less flexible for setups that are more temporary. So some pros and cons of wireless. We do need to talk about those as well. Wireless networking, it's great offhand. You can move around with it. It's easy to just connect to Wi-Fi or cellular, especially with the advances in like Wi-Fi 6 and 5G wireless performances. They are getting closer to Ethernet speeds, but at the same time, um, we are still more prone to that interference, signal drops, slower speeds, especially in a crowded area, obstructed areas, or areas where they're not as close to cellular towers. That wireless connections are, you can notice a slower difference when using your phone when you're out in the middle of nowhere near no cellular towers compared to in the city. And you can just tell it slows down more and it could potentially drop or, you can't download something as fast. Um, so while it's convenient, you don't need to have something plugged into it the entire time. You do deal with those cons of it being an obstructive environment where your signal can just drop like, snap of your finger. So wireless can't always match the consistency or the performance of Ethernet, but it's still a very good alternative to Ethernet. All right, so some solutions and recommendations that I use that a lot of people use now. The first one's a hybrid approach. It's probably the best solution you can do. Having Ethernet on the devices that demand that constant speed, the high performance, for at-home work, having it to your computers, your laptops, if they have a port. Anything that just needs that consistent high performance. Some people have it to their gaming consoles, to their TVs, just so they have that consistent high performance. And then on the other hand, they use the Wi-Fi for their like cell phones, their tablets. Sometimes they use it for their TVs if they don't really care about it being super high speed. Just things like that. Having that hybrid network typically works. When it comes to business, having your Ethernet connected to all your computers, ensuring that they are working as fast as they can is important. Like in a hospital, you need your desktops to be connected to that Ethernet at all times in order so you don't delay any patient care. At the same time, you have Wi-Fi for cell phone devices, cell phone devices for patients or for mobile work desk that they typically have. And it's just a nice hybrid that you can have with the networks. And using it for those high demanding devices where you um, need to be reliable and consistent. Um, Network administrators should prioritize the Ethernet for critical tasks and maintain a well-managed wireless infrastructure as well, just in case as a backup. If like a cord goes out, you can still connect to that wireless or something like that. And also, I feel like users should be educated on when to use wired versus wireless when it comes to their home networks. That will help their congestion a lot more for what they really need to have their Ethernet connected to so they don't have to get wires everywhere and just have them well managed throughout the house. All right, so in conclusion, I feel like Ethernet remains the most reliable option for high bandwidth applications. Even though wireless technologies have improved now, you just still have those potentially signal drops, those cons here and there. Each has its place, and network technology, they each have like their own importance and timing for when they need to be used. And the key is just understanding when and where they need to be used. So by combining both technologies, organizations are able to create that flexible, high performance networks that meet the growing demands of the digital landscape and the network technologies of today, especially in homes now. I mean, you see now with fiber optic, and all sorts of devices now today that we are able to use wireless and Ethernet combined with that hybrid network. All right, so here are my references for everything I found information through these two slides right here. forth on those. Thank you so much for listening. You have a great day.